Hi YouTube, welcome back to the channel. Today we're starting a new series in our guide to emulation looking at Nintendo consoles. Now although logic dictates I should start with the NES, my first Nintendo console was the SNES, or Super Famicom. Were they the same? I think they might have been. Anyway, we're going to start with the Super Nintendo Entertainment System and move on from there. So let's download the emulator and get it running. First things first, you're going to need some games. As ever, I'm not going to tell you on this YouTube video where you can find them. If you're a returner to this channel, you'll know what to do. If you're new to this channel, first of all, subscribe, because this is a weekly series and certainly worth coming back for. And as ever, I will have my very handy guide on my website, providing some additional support on how to get Emulator set up and some other resources. I'll leave a link in the description below to the emulator download page. Just click here, select download. It doesn't take very long at all to download. Now SNES9X is, to my mind, the best emulator for emulating SNES games. It's fully compatible with pretty much every title and really straightforward to use. We'll unzip the file to our desktop, move this folder over and start the emulator. So there are a few things to look at. So as we scroll across the top menu, there's a couple of things to do. Let's first of all look at display. Now on this right hand side there's lots of options here as to the resolution you might want to set for your emulator. Now my personal preference is 4x. There's lots of different variations and we'll go through some of those once we get into gameplay to show you what they look like. You can of course set the frame counter if you want to. Some of our add-ons here change the resolution to 4x3 rather than 8x7, even stretch it to widescreen as well if you want to. Next, let's configure our controller. So of course make sure you have your controller switched on before you start the emulator. It's simply a case of pressing the button and the corresponding button you want to use. This will accept analog sticks as a directional up, down, left and right. There's a handy picture on the right hand side there just to show you which buttons are B and A and X and Y, which are the other way round to your Xbox controller if that's what you're using. Once that's mapped, click OK, and we're pretty much ready to go. So to load a game, we go to Load Game. It's taking me directly to the folder I have the games in on a desktop, but if it doesn't you can just obviously direct it where to go. Select the game you want and then press open. And here we go. Super Mario Kart, where else would we start? So now we'll just have a look at those resolutions again to show you what the difference is. So as we scroll through them here, you can put on some scan lines if that's what we're interested in. Move down here to Simple 4x, which is my particular preference, but still leave some of the character of the game. You can smooth it up a bit more with some other options, do play around, but let's get into some gameplay. Now this emulator runs on pretty much any system, any old laptop, Raspberry Pi, anything like that, so you won't have any problem with emulating this at a full 60 frames per second. So I haven't set the FPS on this, just trust me, when you see it, it'll be running absolutely fine. So have a quick look at this and then we'll move on to some other titles. As you can see, it's playing really well. All faults are down to the user, not down to the emulation. There's quite a lot of dross in the SNES back catalogue, so I thought rather than revisit the classic titles of the day, we'd go back and look at some of the tie-ins to movies and TV series of the 1990s, which are now a bit outdated And to be honest, these games aren't brilliant, but it just amused me to run through them and have a look back at the history of some of the stuff that was put on this. Here we have Bram Stoker's Dracula. Not exactly a classic. Moving on then, Biker Mice from Mars. Bit of a racing game, very much like Neo Geo's Drift if you've played that. Very similar. Again, not much cop, but the tie into the cartoon back in the day is worth having a look at. I think there are some 900 games available for the SNES, so you can certainly find whatever you're looking for. And it's worth having a look at some of these old titles just to think, oh my god, someone actually put this on screen? Someone took the trouble to code this? Really? So here, tie in with Lethal Weapon. I really don't recall crocodiles, chains and platforms in any of the Lethal Weapon films. But, you know, who am I to say? So we'll just kill off Riggs, then we'll have a little bit of Murtaugh action. So Ren and Stimpy. Who doesn't love Ren and Stimpy? It's a strange game this, I have to admit. The animation's pretty good, I think. It doesn't look terribly out of date in terms of the animation. Classic platformer, bit of fun, but you know, worth having a look at if you like Ren and Stimpy, or just for the oddity factor of it. Okay, a Terminator Robocop tie-in. Lovely stuff. Okay, Star Trek The Next Generation. This is a bit of a role player adventure game. A bit out of the norm for consoles really, but again, if you remember the old series and want to have a look back at this, it's nostalgia on acid. And then finally, my absolute favourite in this back catalogue. I just couldn't believe it when I saw this. I had to play this game and I have to show it to you. Steven Seagal is the final option. If Steven Seagal is your final option, then something's really hit the fan. This is a bloody awful game. But just to see the animation of Steven Seagal looking a bit Mortal Kombat, to be honest, just cracks me up. Absolutely cracks me up. It's one of those games you put on with some mates and think, my god, look at this, it's terrible. It really is awful, but there you go. The games they put out just to make some money. Oh my god. Plays like an absolute pig. Just to finish off then, a bit of Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Really is a classic for the SNES. You've got to love it. It's the game most of us bought the SNES for, to be honest. It's a really easy console to emulate. There are hundreds of games to have a look at. I really do recommend having a look at it. It really brings back some of the classics of the day. Go and take a look. Well, that's it then, YouTube. Thanks for watching. As I said earlier, do consider subscribing. We do a weekly emulation guide. We do monthly old PC part builds and a new PC part build, as well as some other testing on components and other bits of kit as and when I fancy it. So thanks for watching. Until next one, go well.